Towering above the housetops and the trees of the town was the church tower. I made the sign of the cross on my lips. The only other building that rose above the housetops to compete with the church tower was the yellow top of the schoolhouse. This fall, I would be going to school. My heart sank. When I thought of leaving my mother and going to school, a warm, sick feeling came to my stomach. To get rid of it, I ran to the pens we kept by the molina to feed the animals. I had fed the rabbits that night, and they had alfalfa, and so I only changed their water. I scattered some grain for the hungry chickens and watched their mad scramble as the rooster called them to peck. I milked the cow and turned her loose. During the day, she would forage along the highway where the grass was thick and green. Then she would return at nightfall. She was a good cow, and there were a few times when I had to run and bring her back in the evening. Then I dreaded it, because she might wander into the hills where the bats flew at dusk, and there was only the sound of my heart beating as I ran, and it made me sad and frightened to be alone. I collected 3 eggs in the chicken house and returned for breakfast. Antonio, my mother smiled and took the eggs and milk. Come, eat your breakfast. I sat across the table from Deborah and Teresa and ate my atole and hot tortilla with butter. I said very little. I usually spoke very little to my sisters. They were older than I, and they were very close. They usually spent the entire day in the attic playing dolls and giggling. I did not concern myself with those things. Your father has gone to Las Pasturas, my mother chattered. He has gone to bring La Grande. Her hands were white with flour of the dough. I watched carefully. And when he returns, I want you children to show your manners. You must not shame your father or your mother. Isn't her real name Ultima? Deborah asked. She was like that, always asking grown-up questions. You will address her as La Grande, my mother said flatly. I looked at her and wondered if this woman with black hair and laughing eyes was the woman who gave birth in my dream. Grande, Teresa repeated. Is it true she's a witch? Deborah asked. Oh, and she was in for it. I saw my mother whirl, then pause and control herself. No, she scolded. You must not speak of such things. Oh, I don't know where you learn such ways. Her eyes flooded with tears. My mother always cried when she thought we were learning the ways of my father, the ways of the Mares. She is a woman of learning, she went on, and I knew she didn't have time to stop and cry. She has worked hard for all the people of the village. Oh, I never would have survived those years if it had not been for her. So show her respect. We are honored that she comes to live with us. Understand? Si, Mama, Deborah said half willingly. Si, Mama, Teresa repeated. Now run and sweep the room at the end of the hall, Eugene's room. I heard her voice choke. She breathed a prayer and crossed her forehead. The flour left white stains on her, the 4 points of the cross. I knew it was because my 3 brothers were at war that she was sad, and Eugene was the youngest. Mama, I wanted to speak to her. I wanted to know who the old woman was who cut the baby's cord. See, She turned and looked at me. Was Ultima at my birth? I asked. Ay, Dios mío, my mother cried. She came to where I sat and ran her hand through my hair. She smelled warm, like bread. Where do you get such questions, my son? Yes. She smiled. La Grande was there to help me. She was there to help at the birth of all my children. And my uncles from El Puerto, were they there? Of course, she answered. My brothers have always been at my side when I needed them. They have always prayed that I would bless them with a... I did not hear what she said as she went on because I was hearing the sounds of the dream. I was seeing the dream again. The warm cereal in my stomach made me feel sick. And my father's brother was there, the Mares and their friends, the Vaqueros. Ay, she cried out. Don't speak to me of those worthless Mares and their friends. There was a fight? I asked. No, she said. A silly argument. They wanted to start a fight with my brothers. That is all they are good for. Vaqueros, they call themselves. They are worthless drunks, thieves, always on the move like gypsies, always dragging their families around the country like vagabonds. As long as I could remember, she always raged about the Mares family and their friends.